I intend to record a short video about God. I posted a video about what I call the view of the totality. One of my documents. And when I do this, I've done this several times over the past few months. I always suffer a lot because here I'm in a mood to be joyful, but before I was really negative against myself, but against others as well. But I have 4 views on the video. 1 or 2 probably are from myself. This is the most accessible, the most simplistic view that I can offer without renouncing any kind of rigor, I would say. And I am in the process of understanding maybe that a couple of weeks ago I think I still talk about the 3%, 97% in my mind, that the smart aspect, the intelligent aspect were the 3% and my empirical self were the 97%. And I thought that my empirical self was evil or bad, and that the 3% was the real God, which was good, the pure intellect. This is the worldview that I have built over the past 4 years, 4.5 years, and even 6 years, the intellectual view of the world. And when I share my intellectual view on the internet, I receive no comments, almost no reaction. And when I share what I call an intellectual view with empirical people, ordinary people, I receive only negativity. And I am in the process of understanding, or I have understood maybe, that actually what people like about me, when they like something about me as an individual, it's my empirical self when I talk normally, because in my everyday life I am polite, kind, I make donations, I am a nice person, etc., etc. And when I record ordinary videos where I do not plan at all, like this video and some others, well, instead of getting no comment or no likes, I get a little bit more, because people, they can relate to. I can anticipate that they say, oh, this is the kind of comment that we find in psychological videos on the internet. People who talk about their psychological suffering, and then in the comment section they say, oh, we can relate, etc., etc. And I made one video on the channel Cultural Hegelianism, which had success. My only successful video, 2,500 views. Most of my other videos, it's below 100. A few made more than 100. And on this channel, it's between 15 and 30 views on average. Whereas I talk not seriously, but it's on this channel that I've made the most serious, rigorous videos about God, namely the totality of being. And it's, in a way, from my perspective, it's very simplified. Almost all my rigorous videos are very simplified. There are just a few about pure logic, which are quite complex because it's partly commentary, partly improvisation, but rigorous nonetheless, partly illustration. So some of my videos about logic, and yeah, either on Cultural Hegelianism or on this channel, they are what I would call rather rigorous, given my limitations as an empirical individual. Where here, if I had to be honest with my very demanding German metaphysical self, I would say it's not quite on the level of Hegel, the writings of Hegel, but it's really good given my limitations. Imagining myself that Hegel, the German philosopher, when I imagine that he existed, had probably an IQ of 170 minimum, maybe 190, etc. And he was a trained philosopher, theologian, he had colleagues he could talk to. Of course, it's kind of delusional, but when I compare myself with the standards, the intellectual standards of Hegel, there are a few videos that, given my limitations, I do not feel ashamed, and I find them quite good. But when I make videos about the view of the totality, the more I publish these kind of... I know that people don't like them, it's not that they reject them, it's simply that I have no success, and every time that I post these kind of videos, either the very long videos where I rigorously, or not rigorously, so either I improvise or I make, how do you call this? Editing. I no longer do this, but I used to do on this channel, but also on Cultural Hegelianism, to make editing, but I no longer do this because I've understood that my attempt to plan, they always fail because it's so far removed. I don't know when will people watch what, etc. But I've understood that the videos that I try to make, even slightly rigorous, people ignore them because it's way too complex. Although from the perspective of what I know, German metaphysics, etc., for me it's very simplified, and I know from empirical experience that when I say this or when I do this, I do not explain this the way I do, but people feel negated and they throw negativity back at me because here it's really here I'm not in a mood to laugh or not even to be angry. I was angry just a couple of hours ago. Here it's really in a tragic mood because what I have called good, while living alone, almost completely isolated for many years, in my apartment, either here or my previous apartment, surrounded by books, watching videos, reading Hegel many hours a day. I no longer do this, but I have developed a worldview which has enabled me to understand reality. What I would call a Platonic, Spinozian, Hegelian view. Plato, Spinoza, Hegel, a purely cognitive view of reality, purely intellectual. And through this view, I have reconstructed the structure of reality in a way. I understand reality, not very well because it moves so fast, but much more than anyone else. And I suffer because I was just reading Philip K. Dick, The Exegesis, one of the most complex books ever written. So my worldview is kind of clear. Formally, religiously, I'm a pagan. The revival of paganism by what I call the pagan community, the European gods and goddesses, it's becoming more and more clear. I made intellectual mistakes, moral errors as well, but intellectual mistakes. But I have recovered, and now I am certain that the European gods and goddesses, I've made a list in my previous video, Apollonian Germ, Stella, Hyperborean Reflections, Caroline, Forgotten Roots, Vargan Marie, Survive the Jar, Philosophy Cat, and all the others, etc. But mostly those at the top. The four that I can read almost perfectly, Apollonian Germ, Stella, Hyperborean, and Caroline, they are really the best intellectually, because they are the only ones in the entire world with whom I could even remotely share my worldview in all its complexity. But is it possible? I don't know. But if they could watch my videos, read the books that I've read, hear my story peacefully, either in this world or in another realm, I don't know, but they would understand me. And they are the only ones. And there are people, here's maybe the mistake I made, or the moral error, or the betrayal, or the deception, I don't know, but there are people who are more knowledgeable in certain topics, either because they have had the formal training, in philosophy, in formal philosophy, those who had a PhD, etc., or in various fields. Okay, there are many people who are more knowledgeable, like for me, in the sense that when I say I'm the smartest, or sometimes I say this, I mean this, but actually I'm well aware that anyone with a diploma in any field, a university degree, is more competent in his field of expertise than I am, because I have no formal education. But my intelligence is holistic in a way, which can make me dumb on a social level. But when I say I am God, or Lucifer, if you want, he's very smart as well. Or whatever mythological entity. But when I praise my intelligence, I'm well aware that formally I have no knowledge of any topic, in a sense, in economics, sociology, anthropology, even religion. In any given topic, I am illiterate, or not completely, but I do not have any formal knowledge. I am incapable of producing a scholarly work. If I had the opportunity, the time, I could write great scholarly works, but precisely I don't. But my intelligence is philosophical, I would say. What was it? Yeah, so the European gods and goddesses, I have the certainty that they are the most brilliant, the most intelligent, because the others, either they have had the formal training, or they have been directly inspired by a process that I do not understand. The spirit of God, either Protestant, Catholic, or Hindu, or Muslim, or cosmic, or Buddhist, or whatever. But they have gone through, they have reconstructed intellectually, and in the sense they are like me, and that's why I love them so much, because they only they can understand me. As of now, in all the process, and even I do not understand myself. That's why I've had ups and downs, and I still will have probably, but I have developed an almost purely intellectual worldview. And these people, they are the best intellectually as I envision this. In terms of, first, they have a very high IQ. They speak well. They are intelligent. They make formally, if I had to, but it's the same for me. Formally, my own videos or my own content, it's not very rigorous. It's not very rigorous for them, but it's not really that important, because they are not precisely scholars. But intellectually, it's brilliant. And in a sense, I can't help but love infinitely the work of the videos and the work of Apollonia and Germ and Caroline and Stella when she made video and Hyperboreans and even Varg, it's a little bit more confused, but it's brilliant nonetheless. And I can't have, and Marie, it's breathtaking. It's, in this sense, I know this because I've experienced this. I experienced infinite platonic love for them. There is the romantic platonic love that I felt for Stella and partly do for Caroline and Scarlett, but then there's just platonic love, namely intellectual recognition. It's not romantic, it's just a love of another through the intellect. And I know, I'm certain that they are the best. But the problem is that I have realized over the past few weeks that my excess of intelligence, not formally, etc., but philosophical intelligence, is what causes me suffering. Because my purely intellectual worldview is precisely very negative in the sense that by perceiving everything through the intellect, the world is kind of degraded, not morally, it can be, but degraded ontologically, which is paradoxically some sort of a Christian view, which is coherent with what I think, but basically these people with whom I identify intellectually, spiritually as my first spiritual family, the intellectual elite of the world. They are and we are pagans, but it's a Christian paganism because it's a Platonic, Spinozian, Hegelian, Schellingian view of paganism, which makes it so that the world of nature is considered to be kind of illusory, or which is the paradox, one might say. And I suffer because I fail to communicate. And I suffer because what I call good, in a Platonic, Spinozian, Hegelian sense, namely the cognition through the intellect, is what people... No, it's not what they call bad, but the worldview that it implies is very negative for others. And whatever people call good, and what I enjoy as well, but is actually, in my perspective, is what I call evil. Namely, to have an ordinary life, friends, family, to be a normal human being, to talk about psychology, to have ordinary problems. I have this as well, but I have called this evil. Before restarting this channel in 2022, I was in a process of trying to become an ordinary person, a productive member of society, to have an ordinary life, a job, to pay taxes, to be a responsible, decent citizen, to go to church, to eventually to have friends. I intended to write a book, or to at least to read, to increase my education, not formally in terms of diploma, also as well, but just for personal interest. I enjoyed going to the restaurant. I played video games. I watched a little bit of porn. But I was, and I kind of enjoyed being with others and talking, etc. So I was an ordinary person. What in the modern context we would call decent. Yeah. But this, when I awakened by going to church and with the problems in Ukraine, I realized that this life that I kind of wanted, because it's what most people would... I was not really happiness because I was alone in a way, but what most people in our day and age, in their 20s, 30s, would call a rather good life, namely to be socially integrated, to have friends, and the potentiality of having a girlfriend, then a wife, and start a family. I did not have that in mind because I was already a loner, but an ordinary life in the context of the 21st century. But then I said, okay, what has happened is a betrayal of God, because God expects a transcendence, etc., etc. And then I recovered my more radical ideas, but spiritually, religiously, eventually politically, but which makes me call evil what I enjoyed without, I will not say that I was a saint, because I wasn't, but maybe I had excesses of drinking, eating, etc. And but it was not a life of vice. I do not judge those who do this, or if I do, etc. But it was not a vicious life in a sense that it was moderate in terms of pleasures and decadence. I was moderately decadent, namely fast food, beer, video games. But next to that, I worked. I was productive. I was competent. I was etc. etc. So but I call this, from my religious perspective, I call this evil because it's separation from God. In this sense, I have an aspect of me which is religious fanatic, which eventually, if I am God, or at least aspects of God, I have to be a religious fanatic, partly. But that's a problem, because it negates what most people call good, which brings them happiness for the sake of a transcendental principle. That's my Evolian, Hegelian, and pagan self. And in a way, this is kind of the insight. It's anti-Christian because it negates that what people call good, namely a healthy relationship with friends, with the wife, with the family, with the society, with the ordinary goodness and kindness. There's not just that, there is moral corruption, etc. But the ordinary goodness, the fact of having what most people call a good life, whatever their origin, their religion, what they aim at, namely to have a peaceful life, to be socially integrated, but nonetheless to have room for the ordinary pleasures, just enjoying good food, drinking good drinks, etc., etc., to rest, to have leisure, to enjoy oneself once in a while by watching movies, etc., playing video games or whatever, reading books. But through my religious philosophical perspective, I call this evil because I understood that this kind of life is, if it is recontextualized within the totality, it's kind of selfish, because those who enjoy this kind of life, they can only enjoy this because in other parts of the world there are other problems, etc., because everything is interconnected. And then that's when I said I have to solve all the problems, etc., etc. And now I already had in 2017, 18, to call evil what most people call good. I do not call good what most people call evil, but already the relationship... And what happened over the past few months? I started by saying my empirical self is worthless. I knew this from Hegel. Only my spirit is real. And I have tried to communicate this idea over the month. And then I started to grow here that it makes me suffer. I was not in a mood to be joyful, but it makes me suffer. Because I have come to like me in some of my aspects. I can be smart for good, I can make interesting lectures, I can make good jokes, not the jokes where I laugh at myself, but I can be positive, etc. I can be, in my ordinary life, I can be kind with others, although it's not costly because I share my excesses of money, etc. But if I could be an ordinary person, with a limited view, I could be a good citizen, a good husband, I don't know, a good father. Oy vey. No, but seriously, I know that these are the kind of things that when people hear this or what, they will say, oh, we like you, or they will put likes because I am joyful and I am positive. But this kind of life, I am smart enough to understand that precisely I have a moral self which awakens, like, that's when I become traditionalist in a negative sense, namely, that's where my excess of intelligence is problematic, because here the Marxist can understand one aspect of a social totality precisely only exists here. That's why Zizek says that basically what happens in Congo, the completely bankrupt aspect of the state, whatever the crimes, etc. From a capitalist perspective, capitalism, global capitalism, exists only because what happens in Congo with the corruption, the crimes, the bankruptcy, etc., etc. I understood this without having to study Marx or Hegel or whoever very thoroughly. It's just logic, namely, a totality contains all the aspects. That's why I experience constant torment for various reasons, but it's intensifying recently, but even before, in the past few months. I just illustrate with an example. Drinking tea. There's nothing wrong with drinking tea, apparently. Yeah. But I am smart enough, or maybe I'm too smart. For me, it's kind of a sin, because I know broadly that it has to be brought here in Europe, the pollution, the plastic, and then it has to justify the exploitation of whatever producers. But that's the kind of insanity that I have gone through almost every day. They are not just this insanity, but in parts of the day, whenever I go out. I don't used to, because I said, okay, it has become irrelevant now, but buying tea. Basically, I'm smart enough and I have high enough culture to understand that it justifies British imperialism, basically, because it's a British imperialism in the whatever 18th, 19th century, or even before that, brought tea to Europe, etc., etc. Coffee is the same, exploitation of South America, etc. I could make a lecture, but the leftist scholars, they already do this. It sounds like a bad joke, maybe it is, but actually it's serious instead, that I am smart enough to understand that just an element of reality, it has to be recontextualized, and here it's a Marxist perspective, but it's Hegelian in the view, and therefore by just, there is nothing wrong with drinking tea, of course not, but from a perspective of the totality, it is possible only because pollution, exploitation, historical oppression, etc., etc. That's when I become a kind of an insane ethnomasochistic leftist, and also a religious fanatic in a sense of asceticism and negation of myself, and that's when I start to enter into apocalyptic mode, and I say, oh, I will drink only the dry bread and water, and I will sleep on the ground in the cold, which I do, but I become a religious fanatic. It can be worse, self-mutilation, etc., etc. Because that's why at some moment people will say, oh, really, maybe he's very religious. Yeah, because I understand the fanaticism, theoretically, of the Christians, the Muslims, some Jews, etc. The people who really are fanatics in the negative sense, not fanatics against others. Of course, there are the crusaders and the jihadists, etc. What am I supposed to say? I understand them theoretically, but also there are the self-negating fanatics. They are partly the same, but they are different. They are the warrior fanatics and the pacifist, peaceful fanatics against themselves. Those who negate themselves and who are very rigorous. It can be for good in the puritanical sense, or really excessive against the self in the monotheist religions. But I have this aspect at some moments. So, yeah, I thought that I would have to negate myself, but then I started to develop a relationship with myself and to enjoy, to appreciate aspects of myself. And the more I watch my older videos, which I did not used to do, but I started to rewatch my videos when I understood that Apollonian germ would not watch them because I myself did not watch them, and how could I expect from others what I do not expect from myself first, etc., etc. So I started to rewatch my older videos, and I thought they were completely worthless, but actually, even the simple ones, the bad ones, what I thought, they are quite good, and they are not successful, they haven't been successful, not because they were not good enough, but even because in their most simplistic expression, it's already too complex for ordinary consciousness. And here, when I'm very angry, I am downgrading, I am arrogant against others because they are not intelligent enough to understand my message. But then I am wise enough, that's the problem of intelligence, I am intelligent enough to say it's not their fault, it's simply because I am way too complex. And I cannot blame others, I can only blame myself, but where does the problem come from? And a part of me wants to antagonize others. And I try to be aristocratic by antagonizing males that I think are the smartest. And I have made mistakes. I have started with Apollonian germ because I know that he's the best. But then I say, okay, given the current circumstances, he's not the best. Then I started to antagonize the CIA. But the time I don't even know when they watch or if they will watch my video, but even it's unfair as well because they are very competent in their field, but actually the kind of the philosophical intelligence, it's way too fast for anyone, even for myself. So I'm in a conflict with myself, and I thought I had to use others to exteriorize my negativity, which I have, but actually it's me against myself, but I do not understand myself. So it's God versus Lucifer, if you want, in Christian mythology, or God versus Satan, whatever. But these are moments, and there is an aspect of me which is exteriorized in the world, but also within my mind, which is in struggle against myself, and I don't know who is trying to help me and who wants to hurt me. But in my view, being hurt is good, and being helped is bad, so I don't know what to do. That's why I become insane, and that's why I try to communicate, because I ask for help, which I consider this to be a sin, because if I am God, why would I need help? And if I am the negative, call it whatever you want, the devil if you want, I do not deserve help, but sometimes I genuinely suffer, and the compromise is to say, look, even if I am God, I suffer, and maybe I need help, but the kind of help that I receive from others that I value intellectually, Apollonian germ and even Caroline, they have negated me intellectually, and it has made me suffer, but I thank them genuinely because they helped me to grow up and to improve, and the pieces of advice that they have given, I don't know what to make of them, but I was told that I am not a pure intellect. But my worldview has consisted in saying precisely this, that I am a spirit or an intellect, and that my empirical self is kind of worthless. But I have grown to develop attachment, not in the negative sense. Of course, I am attached to my empirical self because I am partly afraid of death, I will not deny this, but attachment not for the bad reason, like, I am afraid that I will not be able to enjoy the pleasures of life. I have renounced most of them, but what I'm afraid to lose is the good aspect about my empirical self. Namely, sometimes I can be kind, compassionate, loving, funny in the good sense, intelligent in the good sense. I have good aspects, but my entire worldview has consisted in saying that I have to negate myself. And one of my problems is the inability that I have to stick to a principle, to be a Kantian, and to be faithful, not to a belief, but to a principle, a moral principle. And the reason why I fail, maybe it's a lack of will, but also it's because reality is conflicted, and to say, I have a principle and I will apply it, whatever the consequences, it sounds great, but when there are tension, opposition within reality, it's very difficult to implement, and that's why I contradict myself constantly. I betray my own principles, which make me suffer, but it's very difficult. I do not know what I am. I have formal definitions from Hegel, from the religion, mythologies, etc. I do not know what I am and what I am allowed to do. And my problem, and here I turn towards God, not to ask for forgiveness or whatever, but to just, I know in the sense that there is a God which knows what I don't. Is I have tried to do good and it backfires, and I do not control the consequences of my action. The intention and the consequences, they are disconnected, and depending on the psychological and emotional situation where I find myself in, I have different hopes or wishes or needs. And I have confessed this in many videos. When I am really desperate, I cling to the one memory, which I call good, my teenage romance, not the person, the memory. And in this moment, I am very evil because I love this one memory more than anything else, and I even tend to dislike everything else because it makes me suffer. But then I ask myself, am I allowed to love something else out of love and emotions and out of duty? And there are sense of duty that I try to respect, because I owe a debt to everyone, but in various order, to various degrees. I do not recognize the others, so I betray them consciously or unconsciously, because probably I owe, no, it's not probably, I owe a debt to everyone, but can I repay in another world? How am I supposed to do so? I have to choose, I have to sacrifice parts of myself, but then I change my mind. I do not know how I function, how the process works. But I have been deceived, I don't know by who, but I experience love again. But it's really here, I'm not in a mood to laugh and to... I am smart enough to know that love for an other is kind of a deception and a delusion, because the other is a mirror. But for me, I hurt myself morally by looking at my reflection that I don't like in the mirrors that I don't like. So I want to be blamed for all the problems, because I see only the negativity and everything which is flawed or wicked or bad or what I call evil. I take the blame on my shoulders morally, but then the burden is so heavy that I become angry, etc., etc. But maybe I do not love myself enough to accept that the good aspects of reality, they are also a reflection of me. But first, I see more negativity than good. Maybe because I am pessimistic, I don't know. And second, because I see negativity in my soul, which I exteriorize, but not. But I do not see it in the world. And the good that I have, it comes from maybe my empirical self, which is kind of partly hypocritical, but also partly spontaneous, when I can be kind with others in my empirical life. But when I speak publicly, I exteriorize negativity through my cognitive view. So I have this conflict And up until the month of March or April, I did not think that I could be important in the mind of God. Although I knew myself before to be God, but a kind of dissociative personality God or whatever, so I had forgotten completely, and God for me was a complete other. The idea that God might be interested in me was completely ludicrous because there was the negative, and I was influenced by the view of Hegel, etc., which says that the individual is worthless. But when I tried to take care of myself in 2018, I was punished dearly, one might say. And when I no longer care, I am punished as well. So I don't understand what I am supposed to do. Am I supposed to take care of myself? That's what I've started to believe over the past few weeks, that actually I had to preserve and protect myself against myself. But the self which wants to hurt me is the one that I've been developing over the past many years and many months, because I thought that this was good, that I was the problem. And I still do. And I will be tormented as long as I do not accept myself. And my problem that I love on a conscious level, I have a subconscious, yeah. I love the US and the Anglo-Saxon world much more than France. So I know how the process works. I am being tormented by France because I don't love France. But I know, I'm smart enough to know that what I love is what hurts me, and what I reject is what I love because it enables me whatever. So I can't anticipate, but I can imagine the dialectic. So I try to outsmart the dialectic by saying, okay, if I hurt what I love, I will love something else so that I don't hurt what I love. That's the kind of insanity that I've tried to outsmart. I wouldn't say God, but to outsmart the dialectic, but maybe it's impossible. But here I laugh, but actually it's traumatic to be unable to love what I consciously want to love, and to be forced to love what I don't like, while knowing that what I don't like is actually maybe what I really love at some level, because it enables me to see the full picture, etc., etc. This is in ordinary language. That's what a friend can be: a guy who says always nice things to you, and if you start to antagonize because you're drunk or because you are going through a rough time, he will say, oh, I'm no longer your friend. Or there's another kind of friend, the one who beats you up slightly when you are being a little bit insane, to pick yourself up, like the kind of friend that wants the best for you, even if it hurts. And I'm smart enough to understand that there are various kinds of friends, and real friends are those who hurt you when you deserve to be hurt, but for the best. But I want to be free to love what I consciously love without hurting, and in this sense, I betray my sense of duty constantly because I enjoy talking in English, although no one watches my video, and that's why I'm responsible for my own misery, maybe because I complain about the lack of success of my videos, but I feel the need to express myself in English because my references, cultural, scientific, even religious, they are expressed in English. When I feel really down, like I was before, I read Philip K. Dick, and I could speak about Philip K. Dick in French, but the complexity of the ideas requires a process of elevation which only happens, as of now, in the Anglo-Saxon world. And then I would have to translate myself. That's why I suffer from intellectual excesses, but my love really is intellectual in the sense that I feel good when I can speak English about the kind of topics that I enjoy, and with imagining myself talking to the people that I know are vaguely capable of grasping even aspects of my truth. What I said to myself a few days ago or last week is that I have to love France out of duty, which in a way I do, because all the people that I've encountered in my life empirically and that I have appreciated empirically, they are French from a citizen point of view. But here's another problem, is that for me they are Germans because for historical reasons. My love of France is German, but then I have to revive the German-French antagonism. But it's not really which is a wound in me which has not been healed. But my love for France, whether it means the German part of France or the French, is motivated by a sense of duty, namely what I want to love is America, because I have lived in America for 6 years now. It's been a roller coaster, but I owe my intellectual life to the US, the United States Constitution, American pop culture, American science. But the problem is that I suffer from my intellect. So I suffer from an excess of America, if it is associated with the intellect. But at the same time, this is what I am spontaneously attracted to, namely the Americans. They drive me insane, like the negative aspect of a crazy love. Eminem talks about this. The songs by Eminem, they are perfect to describe my relationship, maybe my imaginary love story with America. Fantastic, love you more, crazy in love, spacebound. I think about Americans, sometimes about specific people who happen to be Americans or certain sections of the American society, but I think about America when I suffer. And the French, when I am negative against the French, it's not because of a disappointed love, it's because frustration. Yeah. But of course, I love the French, but I love them because they enable me to love America. I will not try to play the poetic card, but my soul is being torn and tormented, partly between good and evil, but between opposed aspects that I want to love differently, inadequately probably. But it's more subtle than just Of course, if I were evil, I would try to find excuses, etc. But here I'm not in a mood to... Because the truth. If I could speak peacefully with others, any others, long enough, and peacefully is not just a peaceful discussion with another, but the whole context, not causing catastrophes by not caring about the totality, but just to have peaceful discussion. I know that I would love everyone. I would listen to their story. I would share my perspective. We would drink tea together, maybe or not. And I would love everyone genuinely. And in this sense, I'm not faking, because one of my happiest moments over the past few months has been the ability to talk for 5 minutes with a beggar. And also with an English couple and a German couple, etc. But with the beggar, yeah. But it's impossible, because there are opposed tendencies within the totality. And I really have a negative will to power, which is German for the negative aspect, which is this totalitarian will to conceptualize and control everything. And when I fail to communicate, I become really angry. And this is my negativity. This is a Sauron, the Ring of Power, and Ganondorf in Zelda. And maybe whatever, the Sith Lords in Star Wars, whatever. And the good, which opposes this negative will to power, which is cognitive, the will to control in a totalitarian way. What opposes this is the Hobbit, the simple-minded idiot Link in Zelda, the Hobbit, yeah, the ordinary Harry Potter. I don't know, because Harry Potter, he has negative aspects, but maybe Ron or Neville or whoever, Luna maybe. But the problem, my problem is that here I'm in the mood to laugh. But the bad guys in most artistic productions have always spontaneously thought that they were the good guys. So, not always, but yeah, they are precisely. It's more subtle than. My heart beats for Europe, but Europe is not the continent. It depends. It's the people, but there are various layers in the European people. That's why, here I will be honest. I thought about this earlier, but now I will speak freely. When I become hateful and negative, one of the reasons is that others, what I identify as other humans, they can love in a one-sided fashion, and they can be on the good side without thinking about the bad. I mean, I can do this as well, but ordinary humans, and I used to be in this sense, they can think in terms of, I love this and I don't like that, or I am on the good side against the bad guys. They can choose to assert one aspect and reject the other, and feel good about themselves. And in a way I can as well, but I am smart enough precisely to understand that the two aspects in a dualistic opposition, they coexist in a way. That's what has led me to a rational insanity, because an excess of philosophical intelligence has confused me in a way. Because I have tended to love, to forget what I really loved, and to love, let us imagine in poetic way, the light has to enlighten the dark. This is what makes the light so enlightening and brilliant. But then everyone loves the light, but too much light is blinding, so people say, oh, a little bit of darkness to cool the rays of the sun. But then I have come sometimes to like the dark from an intellectual standpoint, because I know that this is what enables the light to shine, etc. But then I like the dark too much, and I forget that the reason why there is darkness is for the light to enlighten the dark. That's why I am lost in my own worldview. That's why others cannot follow, because I am lost in my own. It's not part insanity, but it's that. I have learned to appreciate both aspects on many topics, because I am smart enough to understand that one aspect only exists because it negates the other. But then this monistic or monist worldview is very complex theoretically, and when confronted by the complexity of ordinary reality, it's even more complex. In this sense, I genuinely suffer from too much intelligence, although I am limited, and my conscious plan has been to promote a revival of intelligence by negating the educational system and sharing intelligence, etc. But this is what caused my suffering, in a way. So being stupid, that's why here I see the full process. People are angry in the West against the elite who have lied to them and deceived and downgraded the culture, erased the culture, etc. etc. But I am smart enough to understand the process, namely this attempt to negate brings forth a will to protect and to restore and to rediscover, etc. etc. But what is being rediscovered is mostly intelligence, which makes me and others remind ourselves eventually that dumping ourselves down, either it was just for fun, for the pleasure of rediscovering how brilliant I can be or we can be, but also maybe it was an attempt to appease the suffering of an excess of intelligence. that may be the problem that me and the European gods have in common. They are still sleeping. I am a little bit more awakened. But that may be the reason of the ambiguity of the relationship, is that I love them, I love you infinitely, and you are brilliant, and you are the best, and you really are. But maybe I make you suffer, and maybe you make me suffer, because we suffer from an excess of intelligence, and we don't want to be awakened. Maybe, I don't know, it's as happened because, or maybe we want to, either it's because, that's Nietzsche here, recovering one's memory enables to enjoy the good aspects for the first time again. Wow, that's amazing. And also, but the problem is that maybe it reminds us the suffering. That's why there's the ambiguity of losing one's memory, recovering. Is it so, or is it a new creation each time? Is it, I don't know. But I do not know what I am. I do not understand myself. It goes too fast. There is a disconnect between the intention and the consequences, between planning and thinking what others know, etc. I try, when I'm completely confused, I try to look back and to act according to principles, but I have broken almost all my principles. The one of the last few that I had yesterday was, I do not change my videos, but I did not modify my videos, and I won't consciously, but I removed the images, what I call the thumbnail, actually it's the picture, because I said, okay, maybe my videos will be taken down because it's public property, etc., etc. But in my worldview, I try to take control of the entire internet from a spiritual or intellectual perspective. So I jumped too fast, and I forgot that first the basics. Taking what does not belong to me, it's morally wrong and legally forbidden, etc. So that's one of my problems, basically, is that I treat others, the others that I have recognized, as parts of myself, as my own property, although they are completely ignorant of this, and they experience this as being a violation of their privacy, which I understand. That's why I've tried to communicate with the European gods variously, the footnotes to Plato, etc. But these people, they have lives. They are not willing, I understand, to be incorporated within a totalitarian process, etc., etc. But this is my problem in a way. But that's the problem of God. That that's what I call God, namely this totalitarian process of self-cognition or recognition is considered evil by most people. And what I call evil, this is what people appreciate when they watch my videos, or when they will watch, or when they have watched, I don't know, that they appreciate, that what they might appreciate about me is my ordinary self talking randomly, and then they might say, oh, I can relate eventually, etc., etc., which makes me feel good. And then here also my suffering. I do not lament myself and torment myself for the sake of poetic expression, but it's simply because it can shed light onto reality. Is that I would like to say, to make psychological videos, because I watch these kind of videos when I feel down. People will say, oh, I have no friends, no one likes me, or I'm all alone, or I suffer from anxiety, etc. And then in the comment section they say, oh, you are so honest, we can all relate, we like you, etc., etc. So when someone says, I have no friends, there are hundreds and thousands of people who say, oh, I would like to be your friend, I'm just like you, etc. Of course, a part of me would appreciate this, but here, in the sense that maybe I really do not relate to humans, whatever I am, because even my most relatable self is still disconnected. In the sense that even when I leave completely aside the system, the categories, etc., when I try to talk about myself as an individual, it's already too disconnected, in a sense that here I will try to be good towards myself. I understand why people love money, why they need money, and I understand why I don't like money, because I've always had an excess of money and I was never really in need. But in the sense, for me, accumulating money has never been interesting to me. So here it's, even when I try to relate the most to others, I still don't, in a sense that for me, money has always been a means to buy books and to buy at some moment video games. But really, I never wanted to be rich because yeah, for me it's in a sense I'm not a materialist in the ordinary sense, someone who is interested in accumulating objects. Although my books, I am a bookworm. I have, if I had had a normal life, I would have kept buying books until whatever end in my 80s, 90s, or 70s, or whatever. I would have bought books and books and books and books, and I would have read books for my entire life as an empirical individual if I had lived 70 or 80 years. So I'm a book collector in the sense that's my addiction, but other than that, I am really not a materialist, and in this sense, I am already partly disconnected. And even when I am good, ordinary, common, etc., I am still disconnected from others, a little bit alien, not very at ease. I mean, no longer now, but even when I started to recover my social connections last year and the year before, I was still distant and kind of yeah. I will talk about Taylor Swift. She just published an album with the song Labyrinth, Karma, and Anti-Hero. And this may be the second time when I feel really negative, not in an evil sense, but in a depressive sense, while identifying maybe with God, or while thinking myself as being really the high consciousness. I don't know how to express this. And in my reality appears the new album by Taylor Swift, which expresses in an artistic, creative fashion kind of the way I felt. It happened to me a few months ago with Billie Eilish, when I was really in a nihilistic state of mind, and then appeared in my reality Bury a Friend. I had never heard of Billie Eilish, and then she appeared in my reality, although from an official perspective she was already one of the most famous artists, but I had never heard about her. But her song, she appeared in my reality when I was really feeling negative, in a depressive state, and there was this mind-blowing artistic expression of suffering. And then yesterday or this morning again with the new album by Taylor Swift, and when this happens, I think to myself, but maybe I'm not just an intellect, maybe I am the creator. But I unconsciously create. And that's why I am so frustrated. Partly I was before, and it happens sometimes that I am so frustrated sometimes because all the others, they have a sense of self-worth, a sense of achievements, a sense of pride, and I don't, because I experience myself as whatever I have done empirically, except my teenage romance and a few achievements in terms of self-mutilation, and maybe a few videos which are really good. Everything that I've achieved in my life, almost as an empirical individual, I experience this as a failure. I fail in most, if not all, of what I attempt to do. So I am frustrated, and I am frustrated and resentful and maybe envious and jealous against others, which are part of the substance, when I think correctly, because most of the other humans, they have a sense of self-worth. They succeed. Either they can have a job, keep a job, produce something meaningful. They achieve, and I don't on an empirical level, and it makes me frustrated. But then I think to myself, but to try to appropriate myself the creation of others because I am the witness of this reality, I find this kind of this immoral. But when I feel really down, in my reality appears expressions which are poetic, artistic, and mind-blowing for the good sense of an artistic expression of something. So what am I supposed to think about Taylor Swift? I love her, of course, she's brilliant, etc. But she produces an album with songs which perfectly express my inner torment precisely at the moment when I identify with God or Lucifer or whatever, and my suffering is made manifest through Taylor Swift, which kind of intensifies my love for America. And then I am plunged in a world that I understand intellectually, but I miss out completely all the other aspects, social, moral, human maybe, but I am tormented. Like I want to that's what I thought before starting the video and before going outside slightly to read a little bit of a book in the sun and have a conversation. But I torment myself morally and partly physically because I feel guilty. So I try consciously to ruin my experience by not doing what I would like to do, like having a job, being a productive member of society a few months ago, and then just what I would like to do is peacefully read books, go out and have enjoyable discussions, make lectures, etc., etc. But I don't, because I am intelligent enough to understand that there is pressure, etc. And I'm in a constant state of torment and pressure to exteriorize my content, which I receive no return. When I produce videos that I consider to be vaguely serious, they are less and less serious. The ones that I consider to be serious, namely the structure, formal, etc., they are less and less serious. I improvise more and more, and it makes me more and more frustrated because the lower the standards, I thought, okay, I lower the standards, it will attract interest, but actually it doesn't either. So then I make videos like these where I speak really normally. All the other, when I'm frustrated, I am partly jealous because all the others, not all, but most, they can achieve something without being under constant pressure. I mean, some humans are, it's very difficult there, but I have experienced myself when I think about making videos in 2019 and 2022, depending on the mood, of being in a constant pressure That's why I let go of any attempt to consciously create something good in terms of aesthetics. That's what I said. I wanted to make my video successful. I know I should have invested 1 week or 10 days into studying. I could have taken a lecture or a course, not a lecture, a course on the internet to make aesthetic presentation. It would have taken 1 week, 10 days, maybe 2 weeks. I would have learned how to make great editing. I would have made one video in early March. It would have had a lot of success. But I invested everything, my time, my energy, my rigor into the intellectual aspect, which is not overwhelmingly complex necessarily. It can be. I could make overwhelmingly complex videos. Maybe I would enjoy this, or maybe not, because people would, but intellectual complexity means also the ability to communicate more and more simply very complex ideas, and that's why what I call my not very rigorous video, like the previous one about Make God Great Again, the presentation, it's not serious at all formally, but it's nonetheless intellectual work, because I try to explain the same idea in a more and more simple way, simplify even more every time. I don't know how I function, what I am supposed to do. I have an inner moral compass which is constantly being broken or tormented. And I thought, and I still do, that my duty, and I am partly evil, and to be evil partly means to fail to do one's duty, is to make my videos successful in French, for the sake of becoming successful, because with the speed of information, so that the Anglo-Saxon might be interested in my videos. But the problem is that it's very difficult, because the level of consciousness is much lower in France. There's the legislation, there are my empirical connections. But this is my duty in a way. But I will not go completely reckless, or maybe I will. I already have, but that's why I don't know what I am supposed to do for the good, but because the intention of what I do and the result, they have always been disconnected. When I have the intention of talking to someone, either he does not understand, or he doesn't receive the message, or he disagrees, or it's too complex, and when I watch my own videos, I find comfort and wisdom and strength sometimes. No one watches my videos, so I do this because the kind of thought that I have is that I have to ruin my empirical experience of existence for the love of God and of others, while not knowing, first knowing that the others, they will not like me or whatever I do, because the negative, etc. Because I have exteriorized so much negativity already. So there's the first problem, and then, but what was the point of going here, coming here, down here if the purpose is to self-negate and to ruin the experience for the sake of doing good. I don't understand. But I still do believe that I have to negate myself, and I try to slow down the process by talking about politics, etc. I want to implement libertarianism, but not for the sake of a political utopia, but just for that people might have the time and the opportunity to watch videos on the internet. In a sense, I'm just an ordinary human. I need to sleep. I have physical and psychological and physiological needs. I just need to sleep and to balance my mind, but I'm constantly being tormented by my empirical reality in various ways. People demanding requests, etc., problems that I have to solve on an empirical level, while having a double identity that I try to share with others, but they are not interested, so I do not insist, but I do not go full crazy apocalyptic mood, etc., because, yeah. So I am being a hypocrite, which makes me suffer. Not being a hypocrite would make me suffer as well, so whatever I do, I suffer. Whatever I do, I am morally corrupt. Whatever I do, I have to fail. That's what makes me insane and what makes me suffer. I have to take decisions which will influence or not, because I don't know how it works. The state of being and the life of others that I don't know, or that I can't talk to, or that I don't know how I work, how I function. Not work in a sense of productive work, but how I function. Are my thoughts being exteriorized? Are my emotions being exteriorized? Are my fears being exteriorized? Are my plans, my conscious intention being made manifest? How does it work? I don't know. That's part of the problem. But I know that there is an entity that I call God, or the substance, which controls the process, at least partly, I don't know, but whenever I have tried to act according to principles, I encounter contradiction within reality that I recognize as being manifestation of contradictions in my empirical reality, and on the web as well, I guess. And another depressing aspect, when I try to communicate directly through videos, I no longer do, because it has failed, or it has partly succeeded, but then I was honest and it backfired. So I try to communicate through written language in the comment section on various channels, and then I have to simplify to the utmost the over complexifying aspect of my worldview. I have to express in 5 or 6 sentences or 10 sentences very complex ideas. But I do not give up on any kind of rigor, but people do not understand. So I share brilliant ideas expressed very simply, but people just are not interested. my reality is in constant flux, constant change. And I have to cling to what I know is true, but truth hurts myself, I have to accept this, but hurts others as well. Because I've just read Philip K. Dick, it's completely ludicrous, but actually the completely ludicrous view of Philip K. Dick enables to understand the modern world, modern reality, and my connection, my spiritual connection to the European gods and goddesses, the pagan community. And their experience can be made intelligible through my lens. But the reason why I do politics, or I don't even sure that I do politics, is simply to consciously, I just want to abolish the institutions, to have free time so that people might study whether or not I am here, whether I live as a spirit or if I am alive as a person, I don't know. But I don't know what I am. What will I be after death? Will everything be reunited in a divine totality, or will we? I don't know. I have to go into the unknown, but this is completely reckless. Is being courageous, does it mean to be reckless? To take risks and to be completely insane. There is courage and there is resentment disguised as courage. I've understood Nietzsche, there's a conflict between Nietzsche and Kant. Do I have to be morally correct on a Kantian terms, or do I have to be Nietzschean and to understand that in some of my moral principles there is aspects of resentment and unnecessary negativity? It's so difficult, so difficult. And then there is an agency, a God, which controls the process, but I do not recognize. What I know is that there are those that I love because I have to, and those that I spontaneously love. But then there's the conscious, the subconscious. I'm tired, I am tired. I make plans on for the next few hours or the next day, but it's enough to be disrupted by the process. So I no longer plan, or if I do, my plan now is to make my video about the previous one with the view of the totality to make successful. But then I could speak to any person who appears on the list. There are hundreds of names, but they would not understand. So that's my problem with truth. To whom do I have to speak the truth? How they would find it? They have to follow at least aspects of the development of the process, and they miss the pieces of the puzzle, if it's a puzzle. And I'm exhausted. I've tried to plant the seeds of light, as I call this. And for me, this is partly my rigorous way of thinking, but I cannot. But my system, is it the ring of Sauron? Is it the wand, the magic wand that Voldemort wants to defeat Dumbledore or whatever? The Philosopher's Stone. is it some sort of a negative magical artifact? I don't know. That has to be negated? I don't know. Because if I made videos where I'm just me in my ordinary sense, I have no friends, I am all alone, I suffer, people say, I relate to you, etc. Of course, because the loners, people who have no friends, they are made in the image of God in a way, more than the others maybe. But that would be manipulation, so I do not do this out of some misplaced sense of self-righteousness. But I do not understand God. And I said myself, I don't know what I am. Is what I say, is it important or not? I don't know. When I say things to myself, like moral standards, if I fail to apply them, I'm being punished. That's why I start to watch my own videos, because I said to myself, I will not expect from others, etc., etc. So others, they do not watch my videos, but I say, how could I expect them to watch my videos if I do not watch my own videos? So I have started watching my own videos, which are quite good, the old ones and the recent ones as well. But then I say to myself, but I have to do everything myself, because I live completely alone in my world. I have no feedback in a way, so I say to myself, but I have to do everything myself. I have to make my own American Revolution myself. I have to take care of my household myself. I have to prepare intellectually, physically, materially, psychologically for problems maybe myself. I have to interpret philosophy myself. I have to do everything myself, and then I become arrogant because I say, but what are you doing, all the others? You are lazy. Although a few weeks ago, maybe that's the work of the negative. A few weeks ago, I hated myself for being a parasite and never having had to work, and being just taking, stealing creations from others, either intellectual, moral teachings, artistic expressions, etc. I borrow from others, I steal from others. That's what I do. I'm just compiling the knowledge that I've accumulated now in my library, but all these books, they have been written by their authors, by the countries in which they have been produced, by the historical tradition, they have been printed, etc. So in this sense, I experience myself as being a parasite. But then I said to myself over time, I cannot succeed if I do not everything myself, so I start to do everything myself, and I start to think, but I do all the work. And who am I talking to? Because here, that's the insanity. I talk potentially to everyone, but I have between 15 and 30 views and no comments. And when I watch my videos, I think, but I'm talking to myself. So I experience myself as being completely alone, which makes me irresponsible in regards to others, because I think they belong to me in a way, but they don't, or they don't want to, which I can understand. That this is part of the self-replicating insanity. So I will rest and read Philip K. Dick, because that's the most insanely complex book I've ever read, Hegel, it's insanely complex, but at least there is a formal structure. In Philip K. Dick, but it nonetheless enables to understand. So my conscious plan for the good is promote libertarianism for the sake of leisure, so that people might watch my videos or read books. I don't know if people will watch my videos in English. In French, I guess they will, but in English, I don't know if they will watch my videos. I don't know if others will be interested in me for my intellectual production, and I don't know who I will talk to, and I am exhausted. I no longer read books or a few dozens of minutes, but when I'm really lost, I do, because I do not read Hegel. I've read so much of Hegel that I cannot speak or express my truth to ordinary people without lying. Because if I start to express what I think partly is true from the exegesis, which I already have on this channel and on cultural Hegelianism, it's so far removed from ordinary consciousness that I have to, here I justify myself, but I have to lie consciously to everyone, simply because the truth is really the long video that I produced. This is how I envision the truth in a simplified way. But in order to get people interested, either I have to deceive in the intention of attracting attention, so that would be hypocrisy. But maybe this video will get a little bit more success than the previous one. But either I have to willingly attract attention, which is deception, or I would have to pay people, that's prostitution. I give you, which I already attempted to do in a way, to buy people's attention by giving them money. It hasn't worked, which is a proof of the integrity of those to whom I am sent money. So maybe I love you even more because you are not easily corruptible, maybe. But I have had the temptation to do this with people that I want to talk to on the internet, but also going outside. Sometimes a few months ago, I wanted to give money to people, Germans, so that I might talk to them for 15 minutes. So basically, I'm using kind of justifying prostitution, but all the sins that I justify, they are in the intellectual realm. But then they are probably made manifest, I don't know, in the real world, but precisely it strengthens my cognitive worldview. Namely, I have to pay people. I won't do this, but in a way, I have to deceive or to lie or to corrupt in a sense of just so that they might watch videos about what I call the process of God. But that's the kind of the pathetic aspect. And those who would listen to me, I kind of betray them. I think about Jean Robin, but also the French. I could make my channel successful in French, but I don't want to as of now, because I'm afraid that there might be misunderstandings. But actually, even in English there will be misunderstandings if somehow so whatever I say there will be misunderstandings, and I'm afraid of being misunderstood, but do my fear become manifest? How do I function? Go back to earlier in the video, the questions that I asked myself. So sometimes I just want to let go and to say, okay, and when I'm in these moments, I say to myself, everything that I have done consciously on an empirical level has been a failure, except my teenage romance and a few other moments, but everything that I have done consciously has been a failure, which makes me hate myself. And when I do, this creative outburst of genius appear, like the new album by Taylor or Billie Eilish a few months ago. So it strengthens my belief to say that, but hey, maybe I am really God, but I unconsciously create an amazing world, and I'm not even aware that it's I mean, it's amazing, but I do not recognize this as my own creation because I've never experienced empiricism. And if I say to others, I created this or I created that, they will say you are an imposter, which makes me feel guilty, which strengthens my Christian but the ethnomasochistic, but masochistic self, which I exteriorize onto others, etc. I did not expect that the suffering of God or in God or by God or whatever would be for misunderstanding, torment between emotion and intellect, which are two aspects of the good. That's why the Christian mythology, it's partly relevant, but I have to assert myself, but then it's arrogance. But if I don't, it's lack of self-love, which is a sin. To love oneself is a sin. Not to love oneself is a sin. Everything is a sin. That's why. Whatever view I adopt, either the purely cognitive, which I know is the truth, spirit and intellect, but then, yeah, only the Americans can understand me. I mean, the Anglo-Saxon, as of now, but the English-speaking person, because they have the culture, the references, or they don't, but potentially only they can. So yeah, it strengthens my belief in a way. And when I adopt even the religious perspective, when I talk about Puritanism, self-mutilation, self-negation, guilt, sin, torment, shame, constantly, which I experience, then again, only the Americans can understand this. The French, they would think I'm crazy, but there is not this relationship to the Christian God in France for historical reasons, atheism, etc., separation of church and state. So to start to talk about God, the need to self-flagellate and guilt and shame and remorse, etc., even though there are still vaguely Catholic people in France, they do not understand it. Only the Anglo-Saxon, the puritanical, kind of fanatical Protestants can understand this, the relationship of God to himself, to sin, to torment, etc., etc. Do I have to plan? I constantly make plans, short-term plans to solve problems, but it fails. So then I do not identify with God, and I say to myself, but who made the long-term plans? When? How? There's a Wechselwirkung, but then whatever. There come a moment when I will openly say on all my channels or whatever, what I would say, whether it's right or wrong or good or bad or whatever, I am God, or I am whatever people want to call me, the negative of God in the various myths, Lucifer if you want, and I will go out in the world, not as an insane person, but I will just say to maybe the people that I encounter empirically, I am whatever your religion wants to call me. If you want to justify, if you want me to explain why, watch my videos in French, in English, on YouTube, on Alt Censored, on my computer. Watch my documents. At some point I will become kind of nihilistic, but in a sense of no, I will just talk. If you let me talk directly to a person, I can explain, but then I will become nihilistic in a way. But the other, I will have to encounter the person empirically, because talking on the internet directly to another, I wanted to do this, but I don't know actually how because I don't know how my relationship between my soul and my mind and my consciousness and reality, how it interacts. I don't know why I am here. Is it a test? Is it a gift? Is it a torment? Is it I don't know. I've made so many hypotheses, partly contradictory, partly convincing. But I will conclude by saying that whatever I say or not say, there is a truth that I cannot hide forever, one might say, and that I will have to speak at some moment publicly to everyone. Namely, I had the certainty of being the whole of reality on the 27th of August 2018. I do not understand how it works, what the consequences are. I'm too stupid maybe to understand. But this truth eventually will have to be known. I have tried to reveal the truth in moments of apocalyptic moods, anxiety, etc., etc. I have tried to slow down the process to hide the truth, not by not accelerating the revelation for the sake of enabling others potentially to have a gradual awakening. I have tried to do this with the people that I want to talk to directly, and with certain groups of people, to try to gradually, like I have, but it's so I have tried to. There are conflicting impulses, tendencies for revelation, hiding, but not sometimes partly not by removing the videos, but for instance, when I removed the images, it was not to prevent people from watching the videos, it was to prevent my videos from being taken down, because it's illegal to borrow images, but when I think, oh, I am God, I take my own whatever, but actually I'm not really yet, or whatever. And here's the really kind of a tragicomical conflict, namely, at some level I am God in a way, or my mind is God, my spirit is God, and at some other level I'm just an ordinary citizen and I have to obey the laws of the country or the legislative structure that I obey. So I don't think that I've said anything illegal, but the very fact that I'm a religious person who really I would say really believes. I don't know precisely because I have a cognitive view, but I am really religious. It's enough to shake the entire structure of everything, one might say. That's why there is cognitive dissonance, really, because I'm partly afraid of going into a mental asylum, not because I am afraid of what's in a mental asylum. I've already been there, it will be worse, etc. But not that it's that I am afraid that it would prevent me from communicating. But I'm also smart enough to have understood that, do I have to confront my fears? Yes, but then completely reckless. I could. How do I have to balance between measure, stubbornness, courage, wisdom? Because there is will, and there is will to power. There's the power of the will and the will to power. The power of the will is always good. In my view, the will to power can be negative, so they have to balance one another by the use of wisdom. That's maybe the Triforce of courage, Link and Zelda versus Ganon. They have to unite against... yeah. By awakening the sages in the temples. These are the European gods, maybe. I'm sure they are. That's why I can't help but sometimes be joyful and say, but that's amazing. But who creates this? Of course, the Japanese. But in the grand totality, who creates this? Me? But if I do, why am I not aware? And when I become eventually aware that maybe at some moment I will recognize myself as having created reality, but will there be others to share the amazement and the wonder with me? Or will I be all alone? I don't know. So there is the intellectual aspect, the moral aspect, the creative aspect, I will listen to Taylor Swift, read Philip K. Dick, watch my video. I grant myself the right to watch my videos because no one watches my video. And I have to take my own wisdom, and sometimes I enjoy listening to myself talk, which is narcissistic, it's a sin, but everything is a sin. Depending on a certain worldview, everything is a sin. If I speak publicly, it's a sin. If I don't, it's a sin. If I speak empirically, it's a sin because I do not speak publicly. If I don't, it's a sin. I am becoming slightly insane. Yeah. I am becoming a little bit insane. I will try to calm myself, because my problem, I summarize, I have spent 4.5 years with a break in between the 2 years when I slowed down the process by becoming an ordinary person again, but 2.5 years, more than that, really in a purely intellectual worldview. Hegel, Plato, Spinoza. I have not read Plato and Spinoza thoroughly, but purely philosophical in a cognitive way, which has helped me understand reality. And in a sense, I know it's the truth. But the problem is that this intelligence is what causes me and others suffering, because people, what they call happiness means being stupid. I do not It's not derogatory. It's simply that I call this stupid as well. When I'm really negative against my life over the past couple of years, when I was an ordinary person trying to get a diploma, a job, a training, to become a productive, decent, honest member of society, this is what most people call good. And in this sense, I was totally in agreement with them. But from my cognitive standpoint, I call this not evil, but separation from God. But then what I call God is this totalitarian mind, spirit, eventually, which is negative because it removes the illusion and it negates, and it's partly it's negative. But yeah, do I have the power to sustain the world for a long time? That's what I wanted to do. That's my problem. That's why people I wanted, the Americans and Stella, I made mistakes with you, Stella. No, I didn't, because you are perfect. You really are. But in my relationship to you, I made serious mistakes that I regret. But you are perfect for many reasons. But if you could hear, and I want you to hear the empirical Stella with your memories, your identity, in this world or in the perfect world, coma white, yeah. That's why the European gods and goddesses, they all have this knowledge that we come from a perfect world somehow. They all express this differently. Varg, Caroline, partly Marie, Stella, you all know this, that we somehow come from divine perfection. You express this differently, but yeah. So Stella, only you can understand as of now, because it's related to you. So here I'm talking to a 21-year-old American girl which has never heard about me empirically, to people who do not watch my video. What is he talking about? Stella, who is, or whatever. I'm just talking to myself. But what happened in the second half of 2018, when I tried to take care of myself, and I wanted to talk peacefully with you, and to be in love with you, to seduce you for the good. But this created a catastrophe, a religious catastrophe, which has made me believe that I was worthless and negative, and that I had to punish myself. But I have these two tendencies. Sometimes I say to myself, I have to love my empirical self, and sometimes I say I have to negate my empirical self. And I still haven't solved the mystery. But the idea that the 3% versus 97%, or 30, 70, but actually became 3 versus 97, what I called good was the 3%. And that's another dialectical twist I did not expect. What I have invested everything in, almost everything good, I might say, is turning into negative now. So if I stick to my principle of the philosophy of Hegel, basically, that's negative. But if I don't, that's negative as well. Whatever I do is negative. I will conclude in saying what I say. I did not plan. I thought about this earlier in the afternoon, but now I will express this. The way that I have to save my sanity is to say that I grant myself the right to imagine that somehow the happy people on this planet, whatever they find good or they find joyful, I have to take the responsibility, at least partly. I cannot be only responsible for the negativity. They will blame me for my negativity eventually. But in order to survive psychologically, I have to say to myself, whatever people have loved or love or will love or appreciate or enjoy, it's part of a totality of which I am being aware with various level of awareness. But so those who enjoy Taylor New's album, the new album from Taylor Swift, I don't know who made this album, but I will not listen to the album, but to the few songs, Labyrinth, Karma, and Anti-Hero. But the kind of question that I ask myself is, what is Taylor Swift? She's in my reality. I understand her music. If I listen to her, if I looked at her biography, I would understand well. I understand the American society, which makes Taylor. I've briefly read the biography on Wikipedia. I understand in broad outlines. She's a white person like all the others. She has this universality. That's why I'm frustrated, because my videos where I talk about white people, they are great. White people of the world, if they watched my videos, they would understand themselves. Maybe they would be at peace. And then here I will talk what I think, because I'm becoming a little bit insane. I've just read an article in a French newspaper about ecologists, white ecologists, who want to give rights to nature. That's a basic, fundamental philosophical mistake. It's nonsensical to give rights to rivers or forests or whatever. It's complete nonsense, because here it's basic philosophy. In order to be a subject of right, one has to have thought, self-consciousness, which is the possibility of having freedom, relation to self and will. Plants and rivers, they have no consciousness, they have no sense of self, they do not think, and they cannot be granted rights. So those who say we have to give rights to animals or to plants, it's a fundamental error, because rights only exist in relation to humans and to God eventually. It doesn't mean that we have to ruin nature. It simply means that people who are supposed to be very intelligent, they make basic errors. Really the basic errors. Like, I'm in a mood to trash talk a little bit, but they do not deserve. But Dawkins, I have nothing against Mr. Dawkins. Hopefully he has nothing against me. But Dawkins, when he says, oh, I don't believe in metaphysics, the Anglo-Saxon scientists, when they say we don't believe in metaphysics, that's a fundamental error. Here I'm in my Hegelian self, but it's the truth actually, because metaphysics is simply self-consciousness. To say I am not interested in metaphysics, I do not believe in this, just to say it's already self-consciousness, it's already metaphysical. It's nature becoming conscious of itself or herself through a self-consciousness, and in the sense the I, not the I to look at, but the I, the self, the ego, the mind, the self-consciousness, whatever you call this in English, das Ich, is by its very nature metaphysical. Here it's basic philosophy, and here I'm on the side of Hegel. And when I become a little bit, I side with Hegel, but Hegel has no sides because he's all sides. But seriously, it's just to explain the fact that very intelligent people, very competent, I cannot deny Dawkins and the ecologists, they are competent, but they make fundamental errors based on wrong assumptions because of a lack of philosophical understanding. To say that metaphysics, I don't think it's useful, it's self-contradictory, because to say I don't think, it's already a metaphysical statement. To say I have no metaphysics, it's just the being unaware of the metaphysics which is being used, the categories, etc., etc. That's why. That's what I think. I experience myself as being worthless on an empirical level. So when I become arrogant, I am smart enough, that's the excess of intelligence, which brings sometimes wisdom. I know that arrogant people, actually, they suffer from a lack of of self-worth, etc. So those who feel worthless or weak or not good enough, they try to compensate by being arrogant. It's basic psychology. The people who are balanced, they are just confident. And of course, when I become arrogant and when I start to trash talk people in a kind of serious way, sometimes it's just tongue-in-cheek, it's playful, but when I really start to doubt myself, I have to compensate by being arrogant, and I insist upon one of the characteristics that I know is important quantitatively in me, it's my intelligence, even from my limited perspective. So I try to play the intelligent card because I need to reassure myself, oh, I expose my vulnerability, my fragility, etc., etc. I know that people, they like this when you say, oh, I am fragile. Oh, you are just like me. I relate so much. Very funny, these humans. Yeah. So when I try to insist upon my intelligence, it's simply because I lack self-confidence, and I try to promote the only aspect that I know I possess in an important way to bring to do good, not in the moral good, but in the cognitive good in a way. I am intelligent enough to understand. That's why I have never studied psychology. But here it's not being arrogant. It's simply that I am way too smart in the sense that I understand my own psychology and the psychology of others in real time, almost without having had to study psychology. That's why I am surrounded by hundreds of books, 1,400 books probably. I have read 20 of these books completely. 10 I have read more or less thoroughly. All the others I have skipped through the book. Maybe not 20, but less than 50 books out of 1,400 that I've really from start to finish. But I get the idea in the sense that they are good. I only buy good books, or not only, but mostly good books. Precisely because I know how to identify a good book in a few seconds. But I understand without having to read, which makes me make countless errors because I forget the empirical aspect, but I understand way too fast in a way. But what is too fast? Maybe it's too slow, so I am too smart for my own good. That's my way of appeasing my suffering, to say that the reason why I suffer and why I make others suffer, consciously or unconsciously, willingly or unwillingly, is because I suffer from an excess of intelligence. That's why I am contradictory, because I am angry against those who dump down the population, I mean the entire system, through dysgenics or through manipulation of the educational system or ideological manipulation. I am angry spontaneously against them because, hey, why are you turning white people into idiots? But then when I think in a more profound way, I say, but actually maybe it's a good thing to be stupid. That's why I become kind of indifferent. Stupid people, that's okay, at least they may suffer physically, but stupid people, they do not suffer morally as much as intelligent people do. I know this. In this sense, I know that the white people and the Jews, I've already said this, whites and Jews, they suffer more than others, not physically, they are privileged economically, etc., but morally, they suffer much more. It's being reflected in their history, in their writings, in their behaviors. They suffer inner torment because they are more intelligent. The reciprocal might be true as well, I don't know, but yeah, their excess of intelligence on average causes them real suffering. And in this sense, here I'm not in a mood to make jokes, but really the people who are limited, either individually or the groups of people who have lower than average IQ, they have reasons to complain in terms of material conditions, etc. But they do not envision the world as in a complex way, in the sense that they are really less intelligent, but for the good. And here it's not the aristocratic, no, it's really, there has to be people in the world who are less intelligent, because in relation, but it has to be a blessing. It's partly a curse, because it's like high intelligence, partly a curse, partly a blessing. But groups of people who have a low intelligence, they achieve much less, obviously. They suffer more economically of the deprivation, etc., hardships, because it's correlated with IQ, but they suffer much less on a moral standpoint in terms of inner torment. Life is more simple. That's partly the archetypes of people who are less intelligent, they are more joyful, which is partly true. It's partly true. It's not a complete prejudice, it's partly true. And here I will be serious, if I can, because I started to think about the German metaphysician, and I started to laugh because Hegel and Nietzsche, they are not always serious. They can be serious, very serious, but not always. But no, I thought about, precisely I thought about Nietzsche and Hegel, but about Kant. And actually the German metaphysician, I did not intend to laugh, but they make me laugh somehow. But no, precisely. To produce works like the three critiques by Kant, or the Wissenschaftslehre by Fichte, or even what I call the lesser philosopher. There is Hegel, there is Hegel. I don't know how to. Hegel, Nietzsche, and Kant. They are the three, the Trinity. But then, in terms of pure philosophy, there is Leibniz, who is maybe the smartest next to Hegel. There is Hegel and Leibniz in terms of pure intelligence, and in terms of rigorous, serious philosophy, Fichte. Schelling, it's a little bit more evasive and poetic, but it's partly serious as well. But it's more artistic. Heidegger, maybe I haven't read much of Heidegger, but I would say the more serious intellectually, Hegel, Leibniz, Fichte, Heidegger, and Kant. But Kant, it's formal, as well as Wolff in the 18th century, and Nietzsche and Schelling and Schopenhauer and Böhm. It's less serious formally, but it's maybe more profound, more serious in terms of content. But yeah, I was thinking about Hegel, Fichte, Hegel, Kant, and Nietzsche. And let's talk about Kant. To produce, and the Germans in general, the Germans, the real Germans of Germany, the high metaphysicians, the poets, the profound thinkers. What they exteriorize through philosophical work, poetic expression, literature, and eventually politics in a way, but mostly for artistic expression, there really is a torment in the German soul for someone like Kant to spend his entire life, the official narrative. It's Germany. How can Germany produce Kant and the politicians of the 19th century, the 20th century, the 1930s, I meant? That's the kind of question that the ordinary educated Europeans or Jews ask themselves. But how could 1930s Germany emerge out of a country which had produced Kant and Goethe and the great poets, etc.? But precisely because there is inner torment in the German soul. Europe has a soul, and Germany has a soul, and they partly coincide. Maybe the Europe is the soul of Germany, but Germany, the German soul here, that here I'm in the mood to say that's amazing, because, but here only a select few, maybe no one will watch this video with the ability to have the vague cultural references, German Romanticism, German philosophy, German history. I myself, I'm not an expert, but there really is a in this sense, I identify as a German, not as a pure metaphysician, although as well, but with the Germans of Germany, which are partly a reflection of the eternal Germany, one might say. But there is an inner torment in the German soul. And maybe what I call Europe, not the continent, not the people, although it's tied to the people, which itself, in a historical perspective, is tied to the continent, but Europe as a soul, or as an idea, I don't know, is maybe the part of Germany which does not suffer. I don't know. That's maybe how I envision this, but they are kind of connected, and I will conclude by saying I have recognized a dozen of people, the European gods and goddesses, but the others as well, Dr. Deep State, Jean Robin, Footnotes to Plato, Overthink, David Thomas Wisdom, Keith Woods, Eminem, Lady Gaga, etc., etc., plus others that I broadly, Peterson and it's very vague. Precisely the European gods and goddesses, it's clear, especially the higher, I really understand really very well, but the other, it's more vague. And yeah, but I kind of recognize aspects of the divine totality, but the question that I ask myself is that eventually, in the unity of all things, at some moment, will I have the perspective of others? For instance, the American artists who have a European soul and sometimes a German soul, will they know at some moment what they are? Will they know? That's the kind of question that I ask myself, and here that's really more suffering, because Eminem and Marilyn Manson and Lady Gaga and Lana Del Rey, etc., will they know what they are? Will they understand themselves somehow, somewhere in the cosmic unity, within God being completed? I don't know. That's becoming too complex. I don't care about politics. I don't care about economics. It only serves the purpose of spirit. In terms of intellect or spirit. In this sense, I am consistent in the sense that I have never been interested in politics as such, only to the extent that it can favor. So in the sense, I've always been in favor of theocracy, not in the rigorous form, but I've always been the idea that politics has to be tied with the divine. I've not always thought this, because there were moments when I was atheist, and then I discovered that. But I say either politics is a waste of time, or if I have to do politics, it's not for the sake of bringing prosperity or whatever. It's just to promote spirituality. That's why here I try to be not too much of a hypocrite, in the sense that politics, I really don't care. The libertarian ideal, it's intellectual and spiritual, and I kind of care, but of course, the economic world is important because it's the substratum of etc. I know. I don't know if I have promoted my books. I want to just watch the previous videos. But yeah. If I had to express myself poetically or not so, I am in a process of awakening myself. That's the end times, the apocalypse, Ragnarok, the Great Reset, maybe whatever they call this. I don't know how long it will last. A few days, a few weeks. I don't know if I can sustain consciously, if I have to die and everything is reunited, or if I can survive as a spirit. That's the belief that I have, that I have to die and that I will survive as a spirit, and the world will continue at least for a while, and I will just perceive as a pure spirit or a pure intellect, but I will still perceive others. That's the belief that I have. Oh yeah. Maybe I will not die too soon, because eventually people will be interested publicly in hearing me talk. I don't know. Maybe. But my thinking goes way too fast, in a way. In a sense, I have been contradicting myself for moral reasons. I've made moral errors, sins, or betrayals, or deception, I have made moral errors. But also, when I look back broadly with my memory, and by looking broadly at my videos without having the time to watch all of them, but I see that there have been contradictions which are caused by really the fact that I improve, or I go faster, and I understand more and more that which I did not understand, and sometimes I tend to forget. So it looks like an incoherent mess, and it probably is at some moment, I don't know, but I see that there are ideas that I held to during the process because it was a moment of the process, but now I have gone beyond because my intellect goes too fast and I can no longer cling to old ideas, or if I don't, or if I do, it's a lack of proper judgment. It's not a lack of intelligence, it's simply that I understand too fast or too slow. But I have doubts, and if I have to confess, like a Protestant, I am still afraid, because I still need God to guide me. I have tried to take responsibility for myself, but I will have to eventually in some form at some moment. But as of now, I confess that I am afraid, because I do not feel strong enough, intelligent enough, wise enough to take the full responsibility. I am not in full control of my actions consciously, and I am not ready yet to take control. So in this sense, I confess that I am afraid. Not I could be afraid for the bad, or I'm afraid of being punished. I'm partly afraid, but I've understood. But no, I'm here. I confess my fear, the fear of responsibility, not for the negative. Of course, I'm afraid of that as well, but for the good, one might say. I confess this. As of now, in this moment, the weird 22nd of October, I still need advice from others, from my books, from my songs, from the songs that I listen to, meditation. That's why I do not go in full apocalyptic mode. I don't want to. Maybe I will at some moment, but in full revelation, because I still have doubts and uncertainties. Of course, I have to accept, step into the unknown, etc. But precisely, make the jump without the rope. I've watched Batman. But that's what I do in a way by making these videos. And all the videos that I've posted since I share my address, I no longer edit. I speak freely, and I know that I have planted what I call seeds of light. Maybe these are seeds of darkness, depending on who gets what, when, how he or she understands how, etc. But I keep planting seeds, but I do not, what I call going full revelation, mean to promote, hey, look at my channel. Maybe I will not do this. I try slightly by posting comments here and there, by sharing information, but as long as I can, I will peacefully keep making videos. I don't know. I cannot even anticipate what's going to happen tomorrow and the day after and the day after. So my plans, in this sense, that's where the song Anti-Hero, the scheming, I have constantly tried to scheme, I'm willing to confess, but with the intention of doing good. So I've made countless small scheming plans, which have all failed. But who makes the grand plan? I don't. Not consciously. I will say that I love God. I don't always love God. God does not always love me. Or maybe he does and I'm too stupid to realize. I don't know. But it's difficult. But what I call God is to speak English, to speak freely in English to a random audience. I feel joyful when I can speak English. That's the truth about me. That's why I really... when I speak French, I really don't like the French. I love them, of course. I owe a lot to France, my material prosperity, my education, all the nice people that I've met. They are French from a citizenship point of view. Actually, they are partly German, but which is true. But of course, I love France. It's a great country. The people are great, etc., etc. But spontaneously, I love the Anglo-Saxon world more, but then I have a sense of duty. If the duty is to love France, well, it could be worse. Maybe not, but I mean, yeah, there are worse countries than France. Not on all, no, I am intelligent enough to, yeah, but that's the kind of insanity, like, I have to choose between the various greatest, I mean, I do not have to choose, but what I call the four greatest countries, in the modern era, France, Germany, England, and the US. But eventually they contain all the others because, yeah, the philosophy, the literature, the sciences, they encompass all the other countries. That's why I'm an insane metaphysician, but rational as well. It's simply to elevate oneself in the realm of ideas, then the rest can be deduced. That's why, in a sense, I cannot deny I cannot contradict, maybe I can, but I do nothing but contradict my intellectual self, in the sense that it's really when I'm in my intellectual realm, with Philip K. Dick, Plato, Hegel, Evola, that it makes sense and that I am joyful, and then when I encounter the empirical world, I suffer because people are so removed from my ordinary consciousness, and I could, but here maybe that's justification for failing to do what is right, I don't know, but to go out and to speak to the ordinary person about, it's not that they are not intelligent enough, but it would take so much time, so much mediations. That's why I consciously lie to everyone. But this makes me suffer. But speaking the truth, that's what I've been talking about for 2 hours and 40 minutes. The truth is so complex, and it's self-moving, self-evolving, and of course the psychological aspect is when I suffer, I think of God as my father, for good or bad. But the mission that I have been how do you call this, that I have to carry is so difficult. It's so difficult. People help me indirectly, but the substance, in a way, it's so difficult because and here I will try to work on myself, but not to be resentful for having to take the blame for all the sufferings and the evils of the world. It's, of course, I deserve this, probably, but maybe not. Maybe it's just suffering, because how can one individual, I am plunged into a world, I imagine that the pain and the suffering and the evils inflicted onto others everywhere ever since there is a world, and as long as there will be a world, they are a projection of my soul or of my mind, but an unconscious projection. So I hurt people unconsciously, or maybe it's things that I said which are being manifested. I don't understand how I function, how the process works, and in this sense, to be thrown into a world and to be accused of all the sins, which is self-accusation, but it's deductive reasoning, but it's without proper explanation. Either I am explained too much or too little, but then this explains why I feel so guilty and why I'm so negative. I have a negative relationship to the world because I envision myself as being the cause of all the suffering, which I know I am, but I tend to imagine that there is only suffering. And maybe the good aspect about me, that I tend to forget that there is not just suffering for others. But I tend to forget this, which is kind of problematic. But here I will end on a positive note. This is why I call joyful nihilism. Is that whenever I encounter people who are satisfied or happy, it comes as a surprise for me. Really. So in a sense, maybe not everyone will hate me, and here I'm not in a mood to, but maybe because I have envisioned that really everyone will hate me, like all the people will turn against me, but maybe some will be just passively watching and be indifferent. I don't know. I've anticipated so much, but I will edit, no, not edit, I will publish the video, watch the video, and read a book about psychology and psychiatry, not very long, but simply to... Yeah. If I could express myself peacefully, calmly, I could solve all the world's problems. The problem is that how to bring about the condition where I can express myself freely without attracting attention, or while attracting attention without attracting too much attention, because then people will start asking questions. Don't be curious, it's a sin. Go back to the Garden of Eden where you were stupid and happy, maybe. No, seriously, which is kind of serious, but. What? Yeah. That's my problem, basically. I mean, I have many problems. I have all the problems, but simply if I could speak peacefully in public, I could solve all the problems. But I can't, because it implies that I would have to make my channel successful by scheming, manipulating, etc. I would have to balance between speaking in French and in English. I have problems on an empirical level in France because I am dependent, because I am, etc., etc. So the people would not be interested, or they would. They do not have the time. That's why I try to abolish most institutions which are useless to bring about enough time. But by the time that I succeed or fail, I will have become famous and people will not. That's insanity. I am in a mood to laugh, but I am struggling and waging a spiritual war against myself through the mediation of the world. And what does the good God wants, as I envision this? He wants me to be myself and to accept myself. But being myself implies making the kind of video that I made before this one, the formal presentation, which is a minimum rigorous. This is what I want to be, partly to be vaguely serious. At least it's not very serious, but to have a minimum of order and structure. But then when I do this, I hate myself because I receive no attention by people who might understand vaguely what I'm talking about. So I hate myself, which makes me try to appease the suffering, and then I make this kind of video, I feel more joyful, and then I'm more confident. So I have this. And then I suffer because I said, but the videos where I am intelligent and joyful, people might enjoy them, but how can I get people interested in my video? I have to scheme to make some scheming. I don't want to, honestly. If I have to be myself, I will not. I could make a training program on how to advertise videos. Maybe I will put the title of the video. I've tried to make titles to attract attention, but it fails. Taylor. Psychology. Philip K. Dick. And my worldview is so ludicrously complex. It's a mixture of Hegel, Philip K. Dick, Evola, modern pop culture, Greek and Nordic mythology, partly New Age, Christianity. It's so ludicrously complex. if I am God, well, if the world has been created, it has. How, when, I don't know. But it's, in this sense, I think about Katy Perry. You're hot and you're cold. You're up and you're down, etc., etc. You're in and you're out. You change your mind like a girl change her clothes, etc., etc. You're yes and you're no. This explains my relationship with God, maybe. But why do my psychological, philosophical, religious problems, why are they being expressed in a very attractive, poetic, artistic fashion in American pop culture? Why? I can't help but think that that's amazing in a way. That's a way of appeasing the suffering. Yeah. So many informations. So much complexity. It's so difficult. I will rest slightly and then